Bart, it's kind of interesting you're on the show with us tonight. A couple of weeks ago, we had a news story on this program that NASA has lost 700 boxes of the original Apollo 11 and all the other mission transmission or tapes. And they're blaming it on some other agency that
or moving or something,
that they didn't get them back and they can't find them. I mean, how appropriate is that? What's going on there with that story?
Well, Richard, I was just at the National Archives, and I was looking at the Declaration of Independence, and I misplaced it somewhere. Thought I used it as a napkin or a placemat or something, and we're still looking for it.
But 700 boxes.
Yeah, I've calculated that this material weighed about a ton, and that it would take 8 to 12 people at least a half an hour on carts to remove it. Now, what convinced people that they were on the moon, number one, was their predisposed position of wanting to believe it, right? When your local football team is up, in the big playoffs, you're rooting for them, and
Sure.
they can't do anything wrong, and you're just like, same thing with this. America, wanted to believe and was rooting for us to go to the moon successfully. What everyone had was a television set. And even though Gilligan's Island had gone from black and white to color in 1967, apparently the moon landings weren't as technologically advanced as Gilligan's Island because they only showed black and white pictures. And they allegedly came from the moon. They actually came from an undisclosed location, were bounced off the moon to make it appear as if they were coming from the moon. Then they went to a tracking station in Australia. So that made them second generation. Those were then retransmitted to NASA, third generation. Then those were projected onto a projection screen, a television projection system of the quality of 1969. And then those were then re-photographed by a television camera of the quality of 1969 and then sent out on the air. So that was fourth generation. It was as if they were deliberately trying to degrade the clarity of the signal so that in the event the fake moon stats weren't convincing enough, then they would be muddied up by the, snowy picture. The networks begged NASA for live feeds of this and were refused. That they got, projection TV quality and then had to photograph that with a camera. Well, I've done 8 years, going on 10 years of research into this with the production of both films. And I never knew that there was something called slow scan television, which are virtually digital images of every TV transmission from every single moon mission. And these images are 400% or 4 times the resolution as to what has previously been seen. In fact, they have never been seen by any human eye. What we have is the television pictures coming from the moon, and what was recently discovered. What was recently discovered is 4 times the resolution. Now, someone found out that the government had planned to disassemble the only machine on the planet that could read these television transmissions. So they had already planned to disassemble the machine so that they could never be seen. Well, a filmmaker made a request for these images to be transferred to like DVD, for posterity, right? They're in a hermetically sealed building in the National Archives. Well, between the time that they were to be copied and the request, about 1 ton of videotapes vanished from the National Archives. I guess that was their only choice. I mean, the TV pictures were probably shot in a lower quality set than the still pictures that people saw on National Geographic, mind you, 6 months after the event, where they had time to be touched up and everything. The TV pictures almost always did a panoramic 360-degree view to show that they were really on the moon and not in a television studio. What they had was a circular studio about the size of maybe a fuel depot in an airport. And they lowered the lunar module into that, but they painted the fake moonscape all around. And they did this nice little 360. But if people were to see these television images at 4 times the resolution, more than likely the fake backdrops would show.
It would be like one of the old movies where you can see the matte paintings in the background and you know that they're not really there. The Wizard of Oz, so to speak,
right.
on the moon.
Now, what they did, wasn't that good of a thing because it brought a lot of attention. Since my film, which inspired the Fox special, aired, previously 10% of the American public thought the moon landings were fake. Now it's gone up to 15%. But you got to imagine there's another 15% of people who are wondering. And when all these every single image from every single moon mission that was transmitted by television has suddenly vanished, people are who are sitting on the fence are kind of wondering. But they had to do it. It was the lesser of two evils.
Right.
It was either that or show the fake backdrops.
Right.
Well,
you have to realize that either, they lost it through a clerical error, right? That means they're incompetent. So how could a government that incompetent put people on the moon?
Good question, Bart. We've
or they
another
deliberately
clip.
disappeared, which
Well,
means
yeah.
they didn't go to the moon. So either way, they didn't go to the moon.
We don't have time for the clip now.
Okay.
No. But Bart, there is something rather humorous here. Somewhere there are 700 boxes of those
Who's got
tapes laying around somewhere.
Would they destroy them? Could they be so...
Well, probably not, but they probably lock them up somewhere. What clip did we not have time for, Richard?
Well, it was a 3-minute clip that it was towards the end of the video, and we just don't have enough time because we
that's okay.
need to get to a commercial break.
But we have time to talk quickly about the faked photographs.
Yeah, one of the videotapes that you got showed, them shooting the Earth through one of the round windows, and when the camera pulled out, you could clearly see one of the astronauts in the space capsule. That was just riveting to me, and I guess that really sealed it and made me a believer, Bart.
Yeah, me too. I was producing the film under the theory it might be true. The shadows don't look right, and the lighting doesn't look right, and the behavior of the astronauts and all that. But what I found, and you can see a clip of this at moonmovie.com, is this previously unseen classified footage, behind-the-scenes footage, of a single shot of the mission that they're doing about 30 times. They're faking a shot of being halfway to the moon. The audience sees a little blue Earth with black around it to show that 3 days into the flight, they're halfway to the moon. Well, they were still in Earth orbit, and the way they faked the shot, super clever. Had I not seen the unedited version, I probably wouldn't have figured it out.
Bart, we're going to have to take a commercial break right now. I'm sorry, we've got about 3 minutes when we come back, and we'll be able to fill in a little bit more on that.
And that entire clip is on this video. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. We'll be back with Bart Sibrel right after this. I never knew.